Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be doing 3 more of those Ryzen 3 2200G platform upgrades to these 3 systems here. These were systems from the same client, having these upgraded from their existing components to something brand new. The only difference here is I've already gutted these machines of their components. Nothing really too special to see there because I already introduced you to these machines in a previous video, but here they are. The E-machines on the left, the Dell Vostro 430A in the center, and on the right is one of those Acer systems with the toolless drive bays in the case. So, there's the components, and there's the machines. So, what we'll be doing is we'll be prepping these motherboards with their APUs and RAM, and we'll be putting everything into the systems. These machines will be using conventional hard drives like the other Ryzen 3 2200G systems I've built. These will not have the M.2 solid state drives. These are a little bit lower budget system. So anyway, let's go and get started. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is prep our boards. So we're going to unbox the motherboard. If you've watched my previous videos, you know the drill. You have the manual, the shield, 2 SATA cables, another driver CD. I got plenty of those now. Matter of fact, I see another one sitting on my desk over in the corner. M.2 screw, and the motherboard. I think this is a pretty decent motherboard if you're looking to build a machine like this with the Ryzen 2000 series APUs. They've worked pretty well. Have not had any issues out of one of them. And I think some of the first machines I did with this setup are approaching, I think, about maybe at least half a year of service by now. And not to mention those Ryzen 5 2400G systems are doing fantastic for their tasks that they had them set up for. They're running Onyx software, which the software itself, the minimum recommended requirements state a Core i7, but the Ryzen 5 2400G is working just fine, at least the client says. So if you've watched my previous videos before, you know the drill. If you haven't, going ahead and removing this stock, these stock mounting brackets, because the included heatsink fan does not need them. It just only needs the back plate. And I have a special drawer over here just to house all this stuff. The chances I really need this are relatively low, but it makes sense to hang on to them just in case. Okay, go ahead and grab one of the APUs, the massive box. I'll tell you, these come in a much larger box compared to the previous, the older APUs, such as the Richland A series. For one, their heatsink fans are on the Ryzen APUs are much larger than the older A series APUs. Matter of fact, I'll be glad to show you a comparison here in a moment. There's the APU and the heatsink fan. So, let's go ahead and grab a stock heatsink fan that shipped with a A series Richland APU. And we'll compare that in size to the Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5 APU heatsink fan. Which I should mention, both of these APUs are 65 watt TDP. So here is the Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5 2000 series APU heatsink fan. You notice the heatsink itself is not very tall, but it's rather wide. It has a good design to it for its intended task. The fan is very large. Compare that to a Richland APU factory heatsink. It's like AMD went so cheap with some of these things they didn't even bother to put their logo on the fan. This is what you get right here. Now, every system I've built with the Richland APUs, with the exception of the Mentor Lux Black Max, I did use the stock heatsink fan and they've worked fine. The fans haven't failed or anything like that. Yeah. What a massive difference. Especially in the size of the fan. So yeah, that is the sheer difference in size there. So we'll go ahead and mount our APU to the motherboard. And look at this. It's the second time this has happened. This one is missing the Radeon Vega graphics sticker. This is the second one. Because either, the first one was missing either the Vega graphics sticker or it was missing the Ryzen sticker. It was missing one of them. I do remember. That's unfortunate. You're not guaranteed to get the all the stickers. Looks like maybe they've changed their CPU packaging a little bit. A lot of times when you open it up, it just lifts out, but I actually had to pull it out in this case. It's not a bad thing. It's actually more of a good thing. And then drop that in there. And we'll go ahead and mount our heatsink fan. I always mount it with the AMD logo facing that way. Plug in our fan. Okay, the APU is installed. Let's go ahead and drop in some RAM. I will say that Newegg packed things a bit better this time. So this time around, we're using a single stick memory kit. I can't remember for sure if that's what it did on the earlier Ryzen 3s. But I know with the Ryzen 5 I did a 16 gigabyte kit of 2x8. Trying to leave one slot available so that way if they want to upgrade to 16 gigs of RAM later on they can, without necessarily having to replace both the existing module and also the installing a new module. I am using different RAM this time. Using the same RAM I used, or roughly the same RAM I used with the Ryzen 5 2400G, because I bought it off a Newegg this time. You gotta pay close attention to these DDR4 slots. I'm not exactly a fan of them. I prefer the slots that have the latch on both sides. Perhaps some do. I mean, perhaps some DDR4 slots do have them, but everyone I've seen so far doesn't. Okay, so this one's ready to go. Let's go ahead and start on the next one. See how this one has both stickers? Yeah, that's the second one out of, I forget how many, but it's not a whole lot when you think of it as maybe a wider scale, but come on, AMD, gotta do a little better than that. People like the stickers. At least many people do. Now this APU just lifted right out of the package. I think it all boils down to how the plastic is molded. Sometimes it's molded better than others. Okay, this one's done. Now on to the last one. And this one has both stickers, in case you were wondering. And the APU just lifted right out of this one. No effort. Okay, this board is assembled and ready to go. Now it's time to move on to prepping the systems. Okay, so we'll start out with the former E-Machines tower. So, what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and install the shield plate, install the optical drive, stuff like that. You can sell the hard drive. Make sure that fan there is good. Thought it was stiff there for a moment. I might swap it for a different one. I don't know. We'll see how it sounds when I get everything together. Yeah, the thing about these motherboards I don't like is they don't offer support for 3-pin fans as far as controlling them, which is kind of a shame. And now for the most hazardous part of building PCs. Need I say more? Can't stand these things. A lot of times they're a pain in the butt, but also can be a pain in the finger if you cut yourself installing one. Now, depending on the quality of your case, well, the quality of your case will also determine how easy it is to install one of these things. And this one just went right in, so that's great. I did swap the power supply in this one. The power supply was in there, had a couple of failing caps. It was still working, but I went and swapped it. This one here, I checked out and everything, it's just fine. I did replace a fan in it because the fan was seized. Now some people may ask, like, why don't you use a brand new power supply in this, Nick? Well, I've seen in many cases, people building machines from scratch. They'll go out and they'll purchase the cheapest new power supply they can find. And it'll be a gutless wonder. These units, even though they're many years old, especially the high pros, the Deltas, brands like that, they're pretty rock solid units, pretty reliable. The Best Tech 25012Zs out of HP machines are also pretty reliable, but sometimes they do have capacitor problems, and I do occasionally recap them. I've used these kinds of supplies in lower end APU builds like this, and they've done fine. I have some machines out there. Been probably 4 or 5 years since I built them with these units, and they're still working just fine. I know the clients pretty well, so I'm in regular contact with them. The other thing I don't like about these older E-machine cases, these ones in particular, is the dang the fact that the original drives, they had a large or a fat faceplate on it that stuck out further. You can see a provision they put in the case for, let's say, if you were to replace, you were to add a second drive to the machine. They put holes here and holes there, but they didn't do that up here. So you pretty much have to install a regular drive in the second bay. This ain't really a fan of that. Now, my first Ryzen 3 2200G builds, I did mod some E-machine faceplates because they did happen to be the right kind. With these older drives, well, even the newer optical drives, a lot of times if it's the same brand as the existing E-machine drive, you can pretty much swap the plate over, sometimes with a few little mods, but generally it's a matter of yes, you can. But last time I think I spent like 30 minutes doing just that, getting that working, and I'm like, no thank you. Because the client, I know, doesn't really care exactly how the optical drives look. And here comes the second challenge. Is when a lot of these E-machine towers I get had 2 drives in them. You know, it's pretty common back then to have a DVD-ROM and a CD burner, or a DVD-ROM or a DVD burner and a DVD-ROM drive. I like this. I mean, for example, the Mid-Tower Lux Blackmax and the Mid-Tower Lux both have 2 optical drives. It does come in handy sometimes, particularly if you're copying discs or something like that, or if you're installing software that has multiple discs. It's pretty handy. But you don't necessarily have to do that. And I get these E-machine systems that came with 2 drives in them. Going from 2 drives to 1, you're missing the faceplate that normally goes in these things. So it's a matter of finding a faceplate that will somewhat fit, and sometimes rigging it to fit into place. So I'm kind of having to do that now. See if I can get this one here to fit. And it looks like that it will. It's not perfect, but I try to get it lined up as good as possible. See, the problem is some cases the covers are a bit different from case to case. So it makes swapping in a faceplate from a different case sometimes be a bit difficult. Sorry this is off camera. And the next part of the challenge is making sure the sucker is secured in there. And a lot of times I have to use hot glue to do this. So other than this, and the fact that these older E-machines towers are lacking newer style connectors like USB 3.0, which that's going to be a common thing with practically any older case, they're great candidates for rebuilding systems. Matter of fact, it was especially common back in like 2006, 2007, 2008, that time period, because the factory power supplies in many E-machine systems, the Bestech ATX 250V12E, is flawed by design, uses an old 2-transistor 5-volt standby rail with no protections, and when one, I think it's, what, a 1 microfarad 50-volt capacitor, when it fails, not if, but when it fails due to overheating, The plus 5-volt standby will sometimes reach as high as 12 volts, and I've captured it on video doing this. It'll fry the motherboard. Now, pretty much the majority of these other OEM supplies use the much safer, more reliable integrated circuit controlled and regulated 5-volt standby rail. Okay, it's popped back in there. And let's hope this faceplate doesn't go anywhere. That's what it looks like, by the way. At least it's alright. Does a job, it covers the hole. Now we can move on to installing the hard drive. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to mount the drive into the cage. Pretty straightforward. And now we can install the motherboard and processor. That's right, I gotta move one piece out of the way. And unfortunately, in this case, I'm going to have to break it out because it won't thread out. So we'll be using the famous Nuno's pliers today. A couple metal pieces out of here that come off that rivet. Yeah, it's this rivet into place. Yeah, there's some of them. There's some out there that you can just unthread it and move it up to the next one, which would be perfect. But that'd be too ideal for all of them, I guess. Depends on who made the machine. You know, with E-machines, they had several different vendors that made them. Probably the most common, especially with the earlier ones, was Trigem. But you also had FIC and some others. This case was originally assembled by Trigem. A lot of times, the assembler was the motherboard manufacturer. That was the case with Trigem and FIC sourced systems anyway. I'm going to melt this thing into place. Crazy, this board has quite a bit of flex to it. Well, not that, it's just like it's crooked, which I find rather interesting. Normally motherboards are completely flat. This one, not exactly the case. I'm going to pull these screws back out, just double check it. I'm just going to double check, make sure there's nothing under there. No, nothing under there, nothing unusual. The board is kind of curved. It really is. It wasn't just me, it actually is curved a little bit. But I'm going to install it and it should be fine. Yeah, it really is curved on this lower end down here. Hope it's not a DOA. Last thing I need is a freaking DOA board. It may be winter time, or getting close to winter time. I mean, it's like 39 degrees outside right now, but it is roasting hot in here with that wood stove going. It's like 80 degrees. Okay, let's go ahead and connect up our cables and stuff. Yeah, so one thing about these older units is you have to use these Molex SATA adapters. Heck, the OEMs that used them had to do this. HP did this a lot with the Bestech ATX 25012Z. The newest system I've seen with that power supply was a AMD Athlon 2 quad-core system. 70 gig hard drive, 4 gigs of RAM. Integrated graphics, of course. But, sure as they please, the Bestech ATX 25012Z, just like the ones that were installed back in 2002, lacking SATA connectors. One thing I see about this motherboard is, let's say, if you're in an environment where you have a legacy printer that uses the LPT port, this motherboard offers a header for an LPT port right down here. So all you would need to do is just buy the header that installs into a slot, and you would have an LPT port. Pretty cool. In case you're wondering, the LPT port has been omitted from many systems now for quite some time. Probably close to 10 years now. So it's neat to still see boards. Yeah, it has a COM1 and LPT1 right next to each other. So if you need legacy ports, this board has them, which is pretty cool. Okay, I went ahead and tied up the power supply cables a bit so they're not exactly all over the place. Now it's either going to drop in a missing, or replace it for a missing expansion slot cover. this machine will be ready to go. Okay, now it's time to move on to the next one. The next one will be rather interesting because it will be my first time doing an upgrade like this on a Dell system. It's a Dell Vostro 430A, and it's not your garden variety of Dell computer. If you've watched my previous video, you'll see that. It's more like a e-machine, or it's a standard run-of-the-mill desktop computer that's just branded Dell. So you may be wondering what happened to the Vostro 430A. There was one problem with that system that prevented me from being able to use that chassis, and it was the front panel header for the power button, power LED, and hard drive activity LED. It was just too short to reach the motherboard because the AceRock board has the headers way up here instead of over in the corner where they should be. Now this case here has kind of the same. There was two issues. One was minor, and the other was the header. The other issue was that case you may have seen with the e-machine system where I had to rip out that one standoff because it was in the wrong spot. Well, in this case it's molded into place. Same goes for the Vostro 430A. So what I'm going to do here is I can still use this case. I'm just going to have to layer this up pretty good with electrical tape, which will help prevent the board from grounding out into the case. That's the last thing we need to happen there. So, oh, and also another thing. Now this ain't related to the Vostro 430A, but one of the hard drives I got from Go Hard Drive was damaged before they shipped it. You may see right on the power connector, which is the longer one, you may see those damaged pins there. Yeah, and also the little ledges broke off too. And there's not any loose pieces in the bag here, so it was damaged in their warehouse. They just failed to see that when they packaged this drive and just sent it on out about its way. Well, they're going to be paying for that, I guess, because yeah, I'm not installing that. So I went and actually unbagged the third one, and I'm going to install this system. And the third machine, what I'm going to do is, at least temporarily, I'm going to install a known good hard drive that I have. That way I can still set up the machine and all, make sure it works and everything. And I'll have to wait on a replacement hard drive for the third one. So anyways, let's go ahead and start on this machine. Yeah, I chose this case because it's pretty standardized as far as its optical drives go. No special faceplates, none of that crap. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and install the I/O shield for the motherboard. Had to pull it out of the Vostro 430A chassis. So as far as the Vostro 430A, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble it back to its factory configuration and refurbish it, because that machine was working fine as it was. I can refurbish that and resell it. It's a Core i3 system. It'd make a nice system for somebody. So, go ahead and take our tape. Let's crazy. I did this to the Vostro 430A, and well, it's kind of a waste of time. Well, yeah. I wish I'd have known to look at the front panel connector. As a matter of fact, let's look at this one. Yeah, it's closed, but it will reach. I think AceRock, I think you really need to change your design there. Stop putting front panel headers, over in this area. They should be in the corner of the board. The vast majority of motherboards I work with have them there, and I don't run into the issue of having front panel headers and chassis that don't reach the motherboard. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a piece of electrical tape and I'm cutting it in sections to where I can just tear each section off and just layer it across this one standoff that's non-removable, because the tip and bottom of the board will actually touch that area, and this board is so small. So that's going to be 5 layers. See, I'm putting on extra layers just to make sure that there's a good bit of cushioning between the bottom of the motherboard and the metal case. I did fault the power supply in this case, by the way. Had a Bashtec 300 watt 312E that had like 2 or 3 bulging capacitors in the secondary. See, I got a nice stack of power supplies over on my bench over here that need to be recapped. It's hard to find the time to do it. And also trying to get the capacitors. I have 2 options. I have buying them new, which, unless you buy them in bulk, can be rather expensive. Or harvesting caps out of motherboards, which I've done that for years, and these power supplies I've recapped with those motherboard caps that are still going many years later. I did, however, score a bunch of a whole bag of Rubicon 10 volt 3300 microfarad capacitors, which will definitely help out with power supply recaps, because those will replace, you can use those to replace 2200 microfarad 10 volt caps as well. I've done that many times. So I'm going to install the optical drive and hard drive in this system. Do this off camera for a moment. Go ahead and install the optical drive. Yeah, I gotta take the bezel off this one. Get it in there. Go ahead and fasten this thing into place. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and drop the motherboard into this one. And from the way things look, we should be good to go with this case. So, if you can see, right down here is where the motherboard rests across that one header. Yeah, it'll be fine. Fine, just like that. It's important though, if you end up in a situation, that you put multiple layers of electrical tape on there. Make sure you use electrical tape for that. That way you won't run the risk of the motherboard shorting out against the case. So yeah, while many people are spending their Black Fridays out shopping, I'm spending my Black Friday catching up on computer upgrades and repairs. Yeah, it's like 1 in the freaking morning right now. After Thanksgiving. Let's start getting stuff plugged in. Let's start out with this connector right here. What's nice is we have a little bit of extra cable here to use, and we'll definitely take advantage of it. Yeah, this case offers plenty enough cable to reach, but as we know, not all cases do. Okay, this one's ready to go. Put the cover back on it. Now I can move on to the third machine. Last but not least, this Acer system, with one of my favorite cases from Acer. Tool-free goodness. No screws required, at least for your drives anyway. We won't be needing that anymore. Yeah, we'll go ahead and swap out this existing SATA cable for a new one. For new ones that come with the motherboard. So we're going to start by installing the hard drive and optical drive. So all I'm going to do is just make sure that's set to unlock. Slide her in. Maybe it's going from the inside, I don't know. No, it kept going that way. It's catching against something, not going the other way. There it goes. Set the lock and it clicks right into place. Beauty. You couldn't really see that on camera, but it's in there now. Now if I can get this front bezel to cooperate and get back onto the system, that would be nice. Now I'll go ahead and install the hard drive. So that's the hard drive I'm going to use for now. This is your typical Seagate 500 gig drive. And drop this in. That is nice right there. I tell you, for an OEM system, an Acer, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, this case here, for the most part, is a great candidate for rebuilds. There's not many tower cases out there you can put 4 hard drives in like this. Most of them are usually limited to 2. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and pop the IO shield into place, and we'll drop our motherboard in. This one's kind of giving me a little bit of a tough time. And part of the reason why is because this case is rather flimsy. Well, it looks like we got it, so we can go ahead and install the board. We'll have to relocate this one standoff, which at least in this system you can relocate it. It's not permanent like the last two systems we're working with here. You just simply unthread it and move it up to the next one. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to grab a board and get it installed. I'm ready to be done with these things. It's late. Okay, we have one more obstacle to overcome with this case. The geniuses at Acer decided to include an Ethernet activity indicator in this case, but instead of making the connector separate, they just molded it together into this whole thing, which is rather aggravating. So what I have to do, see the previous board that was in here, well, will this one reach? Barely. It will reach, barely. Like I say, every case tonight, it's been a long stretch reaching this front panel header. It's installed. I'll move this camera up a little bit. The header that's installed way over here. Should be over here. But yeah. So what I'm going to have to do here, after I get everything else plugged in, is I'm going to have to make a modification to this front panel header. The previous board that was in this case had plenty of overhang, had plenty of room available to the right of the connector, so I could just plug this in as is and let this part here overhang, but we have this heatsink right next to the front panel connector on this particular board. So I'm actually going to have to remove this Ethernet indicator portion from the rest of the header. So the way I do that is by sticking my cutters in here and just snipping that part loose from the rest of the header, just like that. You know what I can do is I can like zip tie that out of the way. Now I can just plug this in like it's supposed to go. And again, it's a very, very tight reach, thanks to AceRock. for designing our motherboard this way. It does reach, but just barely. So I can just let that hang, or what I can do is I can tuck it in through here and it'll be fine. I can stick these cables back into their little holder here. Go ahead and install the SATA cables. What a night. Okay, this machine is together. We just need to add in a cover for that. Let's see if the other one needs any. Yeah, the other one still needs two, so I'll have to add those in. Other than that, looks like these machines are ready for initial testing. See how they do. See, like even this thing has tool-free expansion slots, which is pretty cool. So you have tool-free drive bays, tool-free expansion slots. Pretty freaking nice for an Acer system. Yeah, for an OEM machine. Now I will say this probably is not the best tool-free design I've seen, but nonetheless it's still pretty cool. Alrighty, so now we can go ahead and test these machines. Okay, we'll start out by testing the machine I most recently finished up, which is the Acer Tower. It's already plugged in. Let's see how it does. And if you're familiar with these boards, they do take a little while to post on their first power up. Make sure we're using the right input here. Yeah, this wasn't getting the video the first time. I think it's the KVM switch was on the wrong input, but anyways, here we are. Check the HW monitor. So what's good is the fan is the chassis fan that's in there right now is pretty quiet, even though it's at full speed, so that's good. Let's make sure that our drives are being seen, and yep, they are. There's the hard drive, and there's the CD or DVD drive. You see the card reader that's installed in this machine too. So it looks like we should be good to go there, so we'll go ahead and shut this one down and we'll test the next one. Okay, so now we're working with the second machine. See how it does. We're definitely changing that fan out. Yeah, that one there is entirely too loud. Make sure that our devices are being seen, and yes they are. And those white label drives are Seagate ST500D M001s, I think. And it's funny, the third machine that I installed one of my existing hard drives in, it's the same exact hard drive. It's just a not. So in other words, these hard drives are white label drives. They're actually they're white label versions of Seagate's. So, anyways, I've had mostly good luck with the white label drives. I haven't had too many failures out of them. Anyways, this machine looks like it's good to go, so we're going to move on to the third one. Before I do, I am going to mention again, I am going to change out that fan for a different fan that runs quieter. It doesn't move as much air because, yeah, as I mentioned, this motherboard, unfortunately, it cannot control 3-pin fans. There's no option in the BIOS. The ASRock board that's in the Mid-Tower Lux, on 2 or 3 of its headers, you can do this. You can run it as a 4-pin fan, or you can control it as a 3-pin fan, where it actually varies the DC power going to the fan. So yeah, anyways, I'll be changing that out, and I'll be filling in those empty slots there. Other than that, this one's ready to go. And last but not least, this older E-Machines tower. That fan's pretty quiet. Don't have to worry about changing that out, at least. Here we are. 8 gigs of RAM. Ryzen 3 2200G. It's funny, the first one we tested was running at about 40 degrees C. The second one was running at about 37 degrees C. And this one's running at 33.5 degrees C. I know on all 3 of these I secured the coolers very well. Could be just fluctuations in the sensors on these things. Each and every one reads, well, most of these rails a little high, but I mean, anyways, it's seeing the hard drive and the optical drive, so all that's working. So I think this one here is ready to go. We can go ahead and get going with installing Windows on this one. So all 3 are up and running. I'm going to contact the vendor about that messed up hard drive and see if we can get a replacement. And on the second machine, I'm going to swap that fan for a quieter running fan. Other than that, I'd say this was a successful upgrade of all 3 machines. It was a little bit bumpy, a little bit bumpy of a road, but look at all the mess in the floor I got to clean up every time. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well guys, that's it for this one. But it doesn't have to be. There's plenty more videos on the channel to check out. Also, if you liked the video, please click the like button. And if you absolutely hated it, there is the alternative button as well. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. And remember to click the bell so that we get notified of all updates. Also, if you're interested in things aside from computers and technology, check out my second channel. It's CubeComp MTDX. Over there you'll find videos about weather, elevators, bicycling, and pretty much whatever else I figure out to upload. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for your support.